Central Intelligence Agency report concerning unidentified flying objects, document listed as R0-0-5-6-0R0-0-0. The National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, the 1964 NICAP report released under the Freedom of Information Act. This report represents one of the most authoritative investigations of unidentified flying objects ever carried out in the United States, with hundreds of its pages devoted to a complex, detailed and forensic examination by top academics, military officials, scientists and professionals from all walks of life. The report covers every known aspect of UFOs. Indeed, the 1964 NICAP report is so comprehensive in its analysis of UFOs it's no surprise to find it locked in the secret vaults of U.S. intelligence services for over 30 years. Section 1 covers a cross-section of significant cases. Section 1, are UFOs intelligently controlled? The definitive answer to this question must await a full-fledged investigation by scientists using appropriate instrumentation. As NICAP advocates, see Section 14. However, the accumulation of reports by good observers and some of the special evidence such as radar tracking see Section 8 strongly suggest this hypothesis. How else can one explain the maneuvers of the disc which pilot Waldo Harris attempted to investigate as discussed in the previous sections, or the curiosity evidenced by the two discs which circled the skyhook balloon and the powered flight as indicated by the reports of Dr. Hess, Engineer Cox, and others? Section 2 discusses this question in detail. And how else can one explain reports such as the following of objects approaching at meteor-like speed, then hovering or maneuvering? When these reports come from pilots, scientists, engineers, and police officers, they deserve far more serious scientific attention than they have yet received. Section 2, Intelligent Control. What is intelligence? In reference to human behavior, we usually use the word to mean the application of logic and reason to understand nature or solve human problems. However, we observe intelligence by observing the behavior of people as they go about their affairs. We infer that they are intelligent or unintelligent by noticing their apparent awareness of their environment and how they cope with problems in the environment. We note their behavior as individuals, and in groups. The ability of people to act in concert to accomplish mutual goals generally is considered to be intelligent activity. In regard to the question of whether aerial devices are intelligently controlled, how is intelligence indicated by the performance of aircraft? If we did not know that the airliners and military jets we see coursing through the sky were guided by pilots, how would their actions lead us to suspect this? Firstly, we might observe some jets rendezvousing, joining formation, then proceeding to act in concert. Then we might see a jet depart from its course and circle a balloon, apparently curious about it, before continuing on its way. Finally, we might notice indications, smoke trails, mechanical parts, high performance, etc., which suggest to us that these are powered mechanical objects. This would imply intelligent construction and guidance. UFOs have shown all of these features: inquisitiveness and reaction to environment, powered flight, formations and coordinated flight, reasoning by analogy to human devices and intelligence. The hypothesis that UFOs are intelligently operated is explored below. Caution is required in using this method of reasoning, because it is conceivable that actions which we normally associate with intelligence may not seem so to alien beings, and vice versa. However, there is a good chance that there will be an overlap of intelligent behavior between human and alien beings. In particular, we should expect any intelligent beings to be fundamentally curious about things in their environment. Curiosity underlies the acquisition of useful knowledge, which is necessary to intelligence. Section 2, Intelligent Control continued. In addition to the evidence advanced in this section, other sections contain data showing 1. that UFOs show repeating patterns suggesting a unique and unexplained phenomenon. 2. That the observed objects and patterns have no counterparts among atmospheric phenomena which could account for them in terms of known events. See Section 12 Maneuvers and Flight Characteristics. And 3. That the hypothesis of intelligently operated devices is reasonable and adequate to explain the data. Section 2 Intelligent Control Continued. Inquisitiveness and reaction to environment. In case after case, UFOs singly or in formation have paced or followed automobiles, trains, airplanes, and rockets. Often the UFOs have circled the device and taken evasive action when pursued. An example is a Monon Railroad freight train, see drawing below, proceeding through Clinton County, central Indiana, October 3, 1958. At about 3:10 a.m. a formation of 4 odd white lights crossed ahead of the train. The UFOs turned and traversed the full length of the train, front to back, about a half mile, observed by the entire crew. After passing the rear of the train, the objects swung east, turned back and followed the train. The bright glow concealed the exact shape of the UFOs, but they appeared flattened and sometimes flew on edge, operating part of the time in line abreast with coordinated motions. The objects followed the train until the conductor shone a bright light on them. Immediately, the UFOs sped away, but returned quickly and continued to pace the train. Total time of observation, about 1 hour 10 minutes. Finally the UFOs moved away to the northeast and disappeared. The coordinated maneuvers in formation, reaction to a bright beam of light, and pacing of the train, all suggest some form of intelligence. Similar cases of vehicles being paced by UFOs also have been reported by experienced observers such as pilots and missile trackers. An example at White Sands, New Mexico, June 10, 1949, a missile had just been launched when 2 circular UFOs appeared as the missile accelerated to about 1,430 miles per hour. The UFOs climbed after it, passed through its exhaust, passed the missile and climbed out of sight. 5 separate observation and tracking posts, scattered around the nearby mountains and not in communication with one another, reported observing this performance. One of the posts tracked a similar UFO several minutes later, as it sped west against the wind. Section 2 Intelligent Control Continued. Inquisitiveness and reaction. 50 sample cases in which UFOs displayed apparent awareness of their environment are charted here and divided into 2 basic types. 1. UFOs which paced vehicles or otherwise appeared to be inquisitive about human devices. 2. UFOs which evaded or otherwise reacted to human devices. Section 2 Intelligent Control Continued. Have UFOs been seen in other countries? This surprising misconception that UFOs are exclusively a native phenomenon of the United States is completely refuted in the Foreign Reports section. See Section 10. Part of the reason for this erroneous belief is the lack of information on foreign sightings reported by Newswire representatives abroad in 1962. For instance, a major concentration of sightings occurred in Argentina. See Section 12, Argentine chronology, beginning in May and lasting almost all year. A few of the May sightings were reported briefly in the New York Times, June 3, 1962, from a Reuters dispatch, but in a manner implying that the sightings lasted only 1 day. In general, U.S. news coverage of these sightings was practically non-existent. Reuters apparently was the only news agency to report them at all outside of Argentina. Most major countries of the world for years have had either official or unofficial investigations of UFO sightings. American servicemen overseas have contributed many reports. An example is at 11:20 a.m., March 29, 1952, a U.S. Air Force pilot was flying a T-6 north of Misawa, Japan. It was a bright, cloudless day. Lieutenant D.C. Brigham was in the T-6 target plane in a practice intercept mission, with a flight of 2 F-84s pursuing him. As the first F-84 overtook him at 6,000 feet, Brigham noticed a flash of sunlight behind it and saw a small shiny disc-shaped object gaining on the interceptor. The UFO curved toward the F-84, decelerating rapidly to the Thunderjet's airspeed of 150 to 160 miles per hour and flipping up on edge in a 90-degree bank. Then it fluttered along close to the interceptor's fuselage between the two aircraft for 2 to 3 seconds and pulled away around the starboard wing, flipping once, apparently as it hit the slipstream. Finally, the object passed the F-84, crossed in front, pulled up abruptly, accelerated, and shot out of sight in a near vertical climb. Lieutenant Brigham estimated that the UFO at its closest point was 30 to 50 feet away from his plane. It was round, shiny as polished chromium, and seemed to be about 8 inches in diameter. Throughout the observation, the disc rocked back and forth in 40-degree banks at about 1 second intervals. See Section 12 Flight Characteristics. Lieutenant Brigham saw no exhaust or protrusions, but reported a ripple in the apparently metal skin around the edge of the disc. Foreign pilots, scientists, and engineers also have observed UFOs many times. Around sunset June the 30th, 1954, south of Goose Bay, Labrador, a British Overseas Airways BOSC airliner was paced by a large parent object and about 6 satellite objects. See Section 10 Foreign Reports. Later that night, about 2:15 p.m. local time near Oslo, Norway, 2 UFOs operating in tandem were observed and filmed under especially favorable conditions. A solar eclipse was in progress, and 3 planes carrying scientists and technicians on a scientific expedition were flying through the moon's shadow. About 50 people in the 3 aircraft saw 2 enormous silvery discs swoop down from some clouds 15 to 20 miles away. This estimate is based on the fact the UFOs were in sunlight. The objects sped along the horizon, keeping an exact distance from each other, one slightly behind and above the other, both with forward edge tilted down. The observers detected apparent rotation, as the UFOs leveled off and disappeared into the distance after about 30 seconds. The chief cameraman of the expedition, John Bjornalf, managed to expose about 10 seconds of movie film which showed the UFOs. The films, released by Gaumont, a British firm, were shown on American television September the 26th, 1954. Still photographs of the UFOs have also been printed. Ernest Graham, one of the witnesses, stated that 50 persons afterwards wrote reports on what they had seen. Another unexplainable disc was observed, tracked on radar, and chased by 2 U.S. Air Force jet pilots somewhere in the Far East. In December 1956, 2 USAF jet pilots were practicing ground radar-positioned intercepts on each other in the vicinity of Redacted. During one run, the report states, the intercepting pilot picked up a large unexplained radar blip. He estimated the UFO to be as large as a B-29 bomber. Radar showed it to be 20 miles away and 30 degrees to the left. The pilot called the CCI Ground Control Intercept Site to ask if they had a target which would correspond to the unidentified blip. After receiving an answer in the negative, he asked for and received permission to determine the nature of the source of the radar return. The pilot closed in at over 700 miles per hour. At 8 miles range, a round object became visible exactly where the radar showed it. The apparent size was very large. The pilot described it as the size of a lead pencil eraser if placed against the windscreen. Using figures supplied by North American Aviation, the diameter of the UFO was computed to be about 350 feet. The pilot got the radar lock on, automatically guiding his plane toward the UFO. As he continued to close in, his radar was suddenly jammed by a strong interference. Using anti-jam procedure, the pilot switched frequency for 10 seconds. This eliminated the mysterious interference pulses. Then they began again, but the pulsations were not strong enough to break the radar lock-on, and the jet held its course. The jet closed to within 5 nautical miles of the object and could not close further. When the pilot was closest to the unidentified object, it appeared to make a shallow left turn. It had the appearance of being circular on the bottom. The color of the UFO was described as a golden tan, with no reflection from the sun. After the UFO began turning, The pilot's radar indicated that the object was moving up and away at from 1,500 to 1,800 knots, 1,700 to over 2,000 miles per hour. The Air Force report states that this is an estimate since the UFO's rate of departure was faster than the jet's radar could track. The blip disappeared by moving rapidly off the top of the scope. The intelligence report shows that the jet and all of its equipment was immediately checked, and all systems were found satisfactory. Under comments of the interrogation officers, the report states, the observing pilot lieutenant had many flying hours as of the time of the incident. Over half had been logged in this type of jet. He appeared to be conscientious and reported the incident in a straightforward, slightly embarrassed manner, saying that he would doubt the possibility of such an occurrence if it hadn't actually happened to him. The fact that no unidentified tracks were observed by ground radar should not be given much weight in evaluating this report. Both the jet aircraft involved required IFF in order that the controlling CCI site could plot them. IFF is an identification code transmitter system developed in World War II called identification, friend or foe. The fact that IFF signals were required for ground radar to plot the jets indicates that the Air Force planes otherwise would not have shown up on the ground radar. The above sample cases contain examples of most of the recurring features of reported UFOs, reports from competent observers such as scientists and pilots, flight characteristics such as a disc wobbling on its axis, maneuver patterns such as hovering and terrific acceleration, physical evidence such as radar trackings and electromagnetic effects. Typically, the majority of reports describe disc-shaped or elliptical objects. See Section 12, Section 2 Intelligent Control Continued. Couldn't they be US or Soviet secret devices? When a person who has been a skeptic first becomes convinced that UFOs are, or might be real, his usual first reaction is that they must be secret devices. While space activity in the past 6 years undoubtedly has caused some false UFO reports, the activity of secret test devices on the other hand would necessarily be confined to restricted test areas. The arguments against the secret device theory, then, are 1. Test devices of one nation would not be observed worldwide. See Section 10 Worldwide UFO Reports. 2. If secret devices were operational in the scope necessary to account for UFO reports, the technology implied would cause all current jets and rockets to be completely outmoded. Yet, the direction of our research and experimentation does not reflect such a breakthrough. 3. Perhaps most damaging to the secret device theory is the fact that UFOs apparently have been observed for a very long time. See Section 11. Section 2 Intelligent Control Continued. Soviet aerial technology through and after World War II was not impressive. German technology at the end of World War II was impressive, and this has caused advocates of this theory to attribute UFOs to captured German scientists and engineers working secretly for the US or Russia. American technology was making rapid strides at the close of the war, but our hottest operational aerial devices were propeller-driven aircraft, and our few guided missiles were hardly out of the laboratory. However, NICAP examined this possibility thoroughly, consulting scientists and engineers, including Professor Dr. Hermann Eberth, famous German rocket expert, and found not the slightest evidence to confirm the rumors of secret devices developed by former Nazi scientists. The antiquity of UFO sightings, especially, rules out the possibility of any sort of test devices, secret or otherwise, accounting for more than a handful of UFO reports. Explorer Nicholas Roerich, on an expedition in the Himalayan mountains, August 5, 1926, and others in his caravan, saw a shiny oval-shaped object. While watching a soaring eagle, they noticed the object far above moving south at high speed and observed it through binoculars. The UFO then made a turn to the southwest and moved out of sight in the distance. Approved for release, Central Intelligence Agency, 4th of February 2001.